Hi, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, hey, how you doing? My name is Ash. I am a makeup artist and a book lover. Today is another day for my 25 Days of Christmas series, and I'm going to go over every single book that I read in November. So I actually ended up reading 27 books in November, which is, I know, a lot. I probably should have read maybe more. Probably less, but 27 is a good number. I am actually not going to drag this intro out too much longer. I talk a lot about all the books that I read, so if you're interested in how I did my makeup and learning about all the books that I read, you're in the right place. Just keep on watching. Alright, so I'm just going to get started by doing my makeup and talking about the first book. I have a lot to get through, and I tend to ramble a lot with these videos, so if it's a long video, I do apologize. So before I jump into the first book, I'm going to go in with a lip mask. This is from the Colourpop and Frosty collab, which this video went up yesterday. So check that out if you're interested on my thoughts about it. I love Colourpop's lip masks. They are fantastic. So I'm just going to be using the same primer that I used yesterday. This is the one from Ciate London, and I do have to shake it before using it. And I liked it yesterday, so I think this might be like my primer of choice for this month to see if I can finish it up. I kind of really did fall off on my project pan. It just didn't really work out for me. And while I rub this in, I'm going to talk about my first book, which is an audiobook by Tessa Bailey. So at the beginning of the month, I listened to Same Time Next Year by Tessa Bailey. I ended up bringing this a 4-star rating, and this is like a marriage of convenience type of thing. And it's quite short. It's more like a novella. I think I listened to it in about an hour and a half. And I do listen to my audiobooks at least 2x speed unless the narrator is a little bit harder to understand. And the book is about Britta and Sumner, who are basically not necessarily friends but like acquaintances. Sumner is a Canadian hockey player in the US, and his visa is set to expire, and his team is like, dude, you can't let this happen. In comes Britta. Britta is a waitress at a bar that she plans on buying, and she has a brother on the team, and he asks her if she would consider marrying Sumner just so he can get his visa, and he throws in like he offered to pay like $50,000, which was the money that she needed, and she was like, you know what, let's do this. It's not going to be a real marriage, blah blah blah. Apparently Sumner had like this huge crush on her, and you know how all these things work out. They never stay platonic. So they have to fake being a couple to get his visa extended. So they end up getting married, and this was actually on New Year's Day. So this is like a New Year's Day book, and the Same Time Next Year means they're gonna reevaluate their relationship come a year. Obviously, like, it's just a short, sweet, very, very spicy book. I think it's more spice than story at some point. So, I mean, it was cute. Was it my favorite Tessa Bailey story? No. Do I enjoy it? Yes. Okay, I'm going to do my liquid contour underneath as I talk about the next book, which is also a spicy book, but it's Christmas. And that book is A Jingle Bell Mingle by Julie Murphy and Sierra Simone. This is book 3 in the Christmas Notch series, and this follows Isaac, who is one of the members of the Ink Band, and Sunny, who is friends with First Book's FMC Bree. So Isaac is like the sad boy of the group. He lost his wife to, I want to say it was cancer. You know, several years ago. They were together since they were teenagers, and he's just been grieving ever since. So it's really sad in that aspect. But they ended up having a one-night stand. You know, they never talk about it again. They eventually meet up again. He is struggling to write his final album. She is struggling because she pitched a story to an executive, and now she has to follow through with writing the script. They sort of get together as like she needs a place to stay, he needs a muse, and she tries to set him up on dates, all the while he is just like pining away for her. And it is kind of adorable, but also like all the men in these books are idiots when it comes to relationships, not gonna lie. But you know what, it was cute. I ended up giving this one a 4.5-star rating. It was my favorite of the series, so I really enjoyed it. And the next 2 books I read were actually audiobooks. First one was Make the Season Bright by Ashley Heron Blake. I gave this one a 4-star rating, and this is a Christmas time second chance romance. So you have these 2 women, Charlotte and Brighton. Brighton ended up leaving Charlotte at the altar. They were supposed to get married, and she just left, disappeared, and they had like no contact at all for like the next 5 years. And they're at a point in their life where they end up meeting again, but they're meeting at a friend's house. So they actually end up at a mutual friend's house for the holidays because their friends were feeling bad. They didn't want them to spend any time alone. But the kicker is Brighton had a friend and Charlotte had a friend. Those friends were sisters, but they never knew that those two knew each other. So they pretend to not know each other at all this holiday season, all the while trying to fight their attraction towards each other because they don't want to go down that road again, although they really need to talk about why she was left at the altar. Because honestly, when you get to the part where she explains like how she was feeling, valid. But it was just this really sweet story about this couple finding their way back to each other. They kind of had to grow apart to come back together and be something stronger. But it was cute. I will say I didn't feel it was super like holiday-y. Like there was some like Christmas aspects to it, but it didn't really feel like a Christmas book. It felt like a romance set at Christmas time, but not a Christmas romance book, if that makes sense. And then my next book was Snow Place Like LA. This is a sort of in-between novella between the Christmas Notch series, and this is by Julie Murphy and Sierra Simone. And this is an M&M romance where it follows Angel and Luca and how they kind of had like a whirlwind romance and didn't know like what to do. It was a little bit childish. I gave it like a 3.5. It ended up being cute. I thought I was gonna like it a little bit more. So basically one ghosted the other and they ended up not seeing each other for like months, and then they met up again and they're kind of forced to work together, and then they kind of rekindle what they had on the set of the first movie, and it was kind of sweet, but kind of just, it was okay. I'm gonna set my concealer, but the next book I read was Once Upon a December by Amy E. Reichert. I could be saying her last name wrong. I gave this like a 3.75. It was a very cute, kind of cheesy Christmas book. This is a magical realism type of place where like there's magic in the real world, and there's this Yule market that pops up every December 1st all across the world, and it's basically this little market. So you have Jack, who has met Astra so many times throughout her life, and she can't remember him because apparently once you leave the market you can't remember it, and that's part of the magic of it. So basically, if you live and work in the market, you can basically almost live forever, it seems like. Like, you don't age normally, and you only live in the month of December. Like, there is no other month for you. So it's kind of interesting, that concept of it. But anyways, so Jack has met Astra, and she never remembers him until this year. She is divorced from her husband. She's fighting custody over their dog, and she meets Jack again. And he shoots his shot, and he ends up kind of starting a quick romance with her. They go on dates, and he has to kind of break it to her that, you know, he's kind of a magical person. Not like they have magical powers or anything, they're just in like a time warp almost. So they have to decide if she's going to, you know, stay with him and move into this always Christmas town thing and just like live a life like that, which means she would be giving up everything. It was definitely a different take on A Christmas Story, and I did like it, but I kind of disagree with her choice personally, but it was cute. It was cute. I'm gonna go in with my faux freckles as I talk about the next book, which is a pivot from Christmas stories, and I read A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. This is book 1 in the saga of the Unfated, and I'm gonna try to summarize this book, but it's basically, is it Greek? No, not Greek. Vikings. I've been reading some Greek stories and it's just throwing me off. But you have Freya and, oh my god, how am I gonna say it? Bjorn? B-J-O-R-N? I will butcher these names, but they are enemies to lovers. It's a forbidden romance. Apparently, Freya is a shield maiden, and she has been hiding her powers all her life because once it's known, she is basically not gonna have a life of her own. However, her husband decides to betray her, forcing her secret to come out, and she's basically forced to marry this king who is not Bjorn, but Bjorn's father. So you get the forbidden aspect of that. I'm gonna just speed through this. Basically, there's like a prophecy about the shield maiden. Those that have like these extra powers, like Bjorn is powerful. There's other people that have powers, and they are basically blessed by the gods, which means that their fates are untethered. Yeah, we'll go with untethered. Like, they don't have like a set in stone fate. Like, they don't have anything that's predetermined because they're tied to these gods. And some see it as a blessing, some see it as a curse. It was a fun story. I ended up giving it a 4.5-star rating, and I did listen to this in tandem with audiobook just because, one, I got a copy of the audiobook, and two, I did not know how to pronounce a lot of these names, so it was very helpful to have someone else speaking them to me. But it was quite fun. I believe this is supposed to be a duet. I could be wrong with that. And I think A Curse Carved in Bone is book 2, and that comes out sometime next year, which I am super excited for. Cannot wait to eventually grab a hold of that. It does end in sort of a cliffhanger, which I am kind of anxious to see where they go after all this. But, you know, very fun read. Can't wait for the next one. I think I am going to contour just a little bit and talk about the next book, which is A Werewolf's Guide to Seducing a Vampire by Sarah Hawley. This is book 3 in the, is it Glimmer Hills? Glimmer something. Book 3. So this is with the werewolf Ben and the vampire Eleanor. So even though Ben is a werewolf, he's not like the typical like macho brawny one. He's kind of nerdy. He's so sweet. He's full of anxiety, and you just want to like protect him at all costs. So he is at his friend's wedding. He ends up getting drunk. He goes home alone and kind of sad, and he's just browsing the internet for, you know, something that he can buy. And he ends up placing a bid. He thought it was a joke. He ends up ordering this like crystal that is said to have like a sexy woman in it that can be like your perfect girlfriend. He gets this crystal, and turns out this crystal is a plastic gem that holds Eleanor, a like vampire hybrid who has been trapped for centuries basically by this witch, and for some reason the witch lets her go. It is such a fun story. I want to say it might be my favorite of the 3. I really like the second one. This is just a really great series to jump into because it's fun, it's lighthearted, it does hit on some serious points, but it's like serious but not that serious, and it's just so good. I had the best time reading this. Eleanor and her antics, so funny. She thinks everybody's her enemy. She's French, so she has an accent if you listen to the audiobook, and it's just a good time. Ben is such a cinnamon roll MMC, and he is adorable. Like, adorable. And I actually gave this one 5 stars. It's my first 5-star book of the month. And then I listened to this book by Chloe Lees. This is The Mistletoe Motive, and it is a short enemies to lovers, almost like a Grumpy Sunshine, and it was surprisingly like kind of cute. Predictable, but like cute. I gave it 4 stars. It is a workplace romance, and you have Gabby and Jonathan who basically work in this locally run bookstore together. The bookstore has fallen onto hard times, and she and Jonathan have to basically fight for their job to stay there. Like, technically the owners didn't like say that they had to do that, but they decided they wanted to. So they end up seeing who can get the most sales, and they end up kind of talking and getting to know each other a little bit more. Yeah, so she ends up thinking the worst of him, and he just despises her until they actually like kind of end up talking together. There is some representation of, I think Gabby has autism. Is it autism? She's on some spectrum. I apologize that I don't remember which one it is, but it was kind of cute. They, you know, become less of enemies, and, you know, they share a kiss, and they kind of freak out over their feelings, but they end up working it out together, and it's actually just super sweet and super cute, and it was very, very Christmassy, and Jonathan like hates Christmas. It's the best. So I actually really did enjoy that one. And then the next book I read is All I Want Is You by Fallon Ballard. I gave this one a 3.5-star rating. This is a second chance romance. I want to say it's like workplace adjacent. They are both writers, and they work at the same publishing house, but they don't really cross paths anymore. So you have Nick and Jess. Nick and Jess were together for quite a few years. He was never a fan of Christmas. She loved Christmas. They were both starting their writing career. They met at a like writing seminar or something, workshop, something like that, and they hit it off. And, you know, they got together, and, you know, a couple years go by, and he like breaks up with her for seemingly no reason, just ups and leaves her. And it's like 5 years later, and she's had no contact with him, and it's kind of sad while her writing career kind of goes like stagnant. He is just like soaring in the writing sphere, and he has some sort of I won't say like a gripe, but he has an issue. Not like he has an issue. People have issues with his style of romance because he doesn't have happily ever afters in his romance stories. So this is at Christmas time. Their publishing house does this annual like Christmas celebratory thing. She doesn't want to go, but she's kind of forced to go there, and she is kind of forced by her manager to presenting the award for Best Romance Writer to none other than her ex, who she has not seen in years. She ends up going. It's at this cute little hotel that's very Christmassy, and a huge snowstorm hits. And she is stuck there. Not only is she stuck there without her room because someone screwed up, she meets him and he's like, you know what, you can stay with me. And she hates that so much. Obviously, she's still attracted to him. She never knew why he left her, and they kind of rekindle their romance. There's a little bit of spice in here, and then you find out why he left her. I understand part of why he left her. That could have been cleared up with communication. But the other part, I don't know if I could forgive that. Just saying. Just saying. And then the next book I read was Lost and Lassoed by Lila Sage. This is my second 5-star book, and this is book 3 in the Rebel Blue Ranch series. This was so cute. So this is with Teddy and Gus. Gus is the older brother of Wes and Emmy, and he kind of really doesn't like Teddy. Teddy is Emmy's best friend, and they are kind of like forced together. She ends up losing her job. She kind of volunteers, / Emmy kind of volunteers her to do it, to watch over his daughter while he's on the ranch, and the mother is in a lawyer thing. He needs help in the summer. She's jobless. They end up working something out together. They have always been at odds with each other. If you read the first 2 books, you really get like a look into their animosity, and it just got you so pumped for them getting together eventually. It was so exciting to see their relationship unfold and to see just exactly why they hate each other so much. So I ran out of my pencil and my Urban Decay one. So I went in with my Oma by Sharon C, which is too light, so I'm going to go in with the ink side on this side and try to figure it out. But I'm going to talk about this next book, which, first of all, the sprayed edges, gorgeous. This is The Games Gods Play by Abigail Owen. This is a reimagined Greek mythology. I thought it was really good. I ended up giving this one also 5 stars. I thought that it was just a very interesting take. It's not Hades and Persephone. There is Persephone in it, but they're not together. So there's basically these trials called the Crucible, where the gods decide to choose one mortal to fight for them. Instead of them fighting each other, they choose a mortal. And whichever god picks the winning mortal, they become basically the god of gods. So right now, like, Zeus is in power. They would take over for Zeus. So what happens with this one is Hades decides that he's going to choose a mortal and participate in these games. So he ends up choosing this girl, Lyra. She works in kind of like I don't want to say gang of thieves, but like, we'll call it like that. And she ends up meeting Hades when she decides to try to go to the god of Zeus to confront him about cursing her from a baby to be unloved. So she basically goes through her life thinking that she is unloved. Her parents ended up giving her up when she was 3 years old. Basically, it's her parents' fault that she was cursed. Zeus doesn't care about semantics, I guess. So Hades ends up picking her as his mortal, and it's Hades. So of course he has like an ulterior motive with everything that he does. Like, everything he does has a reason for it. And there's a trial set up by each of the gods. The first one, I believe, was Poseidon, and these mortals could die, they could kill each other, and you know what? Things ensue. So it's like almost like the Hunger Games, but Greek stuff. It does end on a cliffhanger, and the author just posted not too long ago the cover reveal of the second book, which is going to be The Things Gods Break, and I can't wait for it because the cliffhanger, I gotta see how they figure that out, but the cliffhanger was good. Alright, I'm gonna prime my eyes and talk about the next 3 books, which I read on my Kindle, which were all part of the same series, and they are all romances. So I'm just gonna breeze through these really quick. So I read Married Before Christmas, Married for Now, and Married Since Forever. This is the Just Married series by Megan Linden. I gave all of these 3 stars because they were just okay. So these are all, like I said, romances, and they are basically marriage of convenience. So you have the first one, they got married to save the company. It's like when they got married for one of them to stay in the country, and the last one was they got married and they have stayed married because the dude just up and left, and he hasn't been able to get a divorce. So honestly, like, the stories were just a little bit ridiculous. They definitely weren't very long, and I did like enjoy them. If I wouldn't have gotten the first book for free, I probably wouldn't have read the rest, if I'm being honest. For eyeshadow today, I'm going to use the Fairly Yours 2 palette because I played with this the other day and I was like, you know what, I need to play with this again and use the reds. So that is what I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to start with going in with Buff. And I'm going to put that kind of all in my crease. And then the next two books I read was the Alpha's Savior and the Alpha's Inferno. This is part of the Shifters of Grey Ridge series by Reese Barden, and I gave them both 4-star ratings. These are not free. I did get the first book for free, and I ended up buying the second book. Did I buy this? I might have bought the third book already. If not, I may not buy the rest of the series. I think they're like $5 a piece, but they are shifter romances about kind of werewolves. The second one involves a bear shifter. So like the first book felt like it could have been like 2 separate books because you get through the halfway mark and like drama already ensued and like that's over, right? There's no more, and it just keeps going. So book 1 is Haley and Cooper. I don't understand how it happens because it happened like really fast in the beginning. Haley actually ends up saving Cooper's life and he realizes that she is his mate, but he can't like just tell her. So Haley kind of ran from her ex-boyfriend and she's not necessarily hiding in the community, but she's kind of laying low. That's part of the drama. Obviously, the ex finds her again, but then there's like the pack drama. From what I understand, how the series is going to go is there is an underlying like pack problem, like problem with the werewolf pack, and that's going to be like a theme throughout the series. And then there's going to be another drama aspect about like each individual couple. But the second book, The Alpha's Inferno, this is with Marcus and Layla. Layla is Cooper's sister, so she's a wolf, and Marcus is a bear shifter, and he is the sheriff of the town. Layla realizes that Marcus is her fated mate, and for Marcus, bear shifters don't really like have the same mate connection, but Marcus like really likes Layla, but he kind of like fights his feelings for her because he wants to not mess with that family because they kind of run the town and he doesn't want to lose his new home. Without realizing it, he kind of ends up like rejecting her. I'm gonna pop into Kitty now, and I just have just a random brush. So this takes place over quite a long period of time where they kind of avoid each other, but eventually they end up getting together, and you know, all the drama ensues because like the problem that happened in the first book picks up again in the second book. You know, it's interesting. I just wish that they were just a little bit either shorter or just a little bit more like fast-paced. I'm gonna go in with the Scarlet gel because I really want to use this. I didn't use it when I did my initial review, and I will get into my next set of books in a second, which would be the Bromance Book Club by Alyssa K. Adams. I read all 5 of these books and they are fantastic. They're entertaining, they're funny, they have some sweet moments. I loved it. So before I attempt to do the liner, the first book is the Bromance Book Club. The second one is Undercover Bromance. The third one is Crazy Stupid Bromance. Fourth one is Isn't It Bromantic? And the fifth one is a Christmas one. This one is A Very Merry Bromance. So this series is basically about this group of men who have formed a book club where they read romance books to be better men for their partners. They basically like use these romance books as manuals on how to behave correctly when it comes to women. So each book follows a different man and their problems. Like the first one, the man finds out that his wife has been lying to him basically about having the big O. She's been basically faking it for their entire marriage. Which, granted, yes, he should have realized something's wrong, but shouldn't you also, like, say something? Like, you should say something if, like, it's 3 years and you haven't had, like, a real one, and, like, one night you do, and he's like, what the hell is that? I'm not saying, like, he's completely not in the wrong. There's other issues with their relationship, but like, come on. Yeah, communicate that. The second one is about a man who kind of gets someone fired and he feels bad, and then they have to work together to basically bring down this restaurant owner who is a creep who harasses multiple women and then pays them off. The third one is about a man who is in love with his best friend and he doesn't know how to tell her that. Also, she has some like crazy stuff happening with like her family that she didn't realize she had a family, and like that's just messed up in itself. The fourth one may be my favorite. It's with Vlad and Elena, and they are already married. They got married when they were in Russia, and he moved to the US to be a hockey player. He married her to get her out of the country. He's been in love with her, and she's been living in a completely different city. She ends up showing back up in his life after he's like, I want to give this a real shot, and she's like, I want a divorce, I want to go back to Russia, and he is heartbroken. And then the fifth one is about a man who has a one-night stand, and he hasn't been able to get her out of his head, and it turns out that the woman he had a one-night stand with needs him to sign over something for her family to be an endorser, and he's like, I will think about it if you go on a date with me, because they hooked up and he is the one that got left. And they just avoid each other for like the next year. So basically, all these men, they get together, they read these books, and they help each other out to figure out like what went wrong and to see if they can fix their relationship. They are so fun. Honestly, some of the most fun books I've read lately. I think I gave all of them except for the last one. I gave the last one 4.5 stars. I want to dip into Crimson now and kind of like smudge this out. I'm just going to quickly go over the next book I read, which was Frisky the Snowman by Lauren Beale. I don't know why I gave this 3 stars. I probably should give it lower. It is a erotica book about a snowman, and that's basically all you need to know. Read at your own risk. And the next book I read was Finding My Elf by David Valdez, which I also listened to on audiobook. I don't have the physical copy of it. This is a YA romance. You have this, I'm gonna call them kids. They're legal adults, but kids in my eye. Cameron is back home for the holidays. He's kind of failing in New York. He feels like a disappointment, and he needs money because he doesn't think he's going to be able to attend the next semester at school. And he ends up getting a job as an elf at this like Christmas Wonderland gig, and he ends up meeting Marco, who is just the jolliest little elf. They don't exactly click right away. They end up spending more time together. There's a competition aspect of this elf thing that's honestly quite ridiculous. I'm gonna dip into Fiery here, but it's just a quick cute story about young love, and there is a little bit of a triangle aspect of it. I don't love that, but it's not too bad. Basically, Cameron has this ex that comes back into the picture when he's getting closer to Marco, and he just has to figure out his stuff. He ends up hurting his dad's feelings. And then the next 2 books I read were Shatterproof and Flameproof by Joe Chambliss. This is part of the Waterproof series, and this is a military romance. All the men in the series are Navy SEALs, and like they just deal with ridiculous stuff. Going back in with Kitty. So the first book takes place with Chris and Willa. Chris actually ends up saving Willa's child while he was on his way to his cabin in the woods. He finds her in the middle of the road, and she's like, gotta help my mommy. And he ends up calling the sheriff, who he is friends with, and they end up finding the cabin where Willa was being held. Chris kind of takes them into his protection because he forms like an immediate attachment to her daughter, and it's actually kind of sweet. So Chris and Willa start to get close, but then he's called away for an assignment, and while he's gone, they end up disappearing again. So that's basically book 1. Book 2 is about Gunnar and Rory. This is a second chance romance. They were teenage lovers. They lived in a small town together. Things just went screwy with them around graduation, and they end up disappearing in each other's lives after something traumatic happens, and they don't meet each other again for 10 years. It's supposed to be like a Christmas look. It's not very Christmassy. Anyway, so this is about them rediscovering their relationship and, you know, talking about what happened in the past, where they're going to go forward in the future, and if they even have a future together. I do think I might continue with the series. It is on Kindle Unlimited. I technically have the 3rd book downloaded, but I haven't started it yet. I'm not loving how my makeup looks. I think once I get my lashes and some liner on, it might, like, fix it. Hopefully. and go in with Glisten and do something with it. I only have 2 more books to talk about. The next one is The Holiday Swap by Maggie Knox. I listened to this on audiobook also, and I only gave this one a 3.5 star rating. This is a story about identical twins. So you have Charlie and Cass. Cass still lives in their hometown and runs the family bakery. Charlie left their hometown and is a host on a baking show. Charlie ends up having an onset accident that leaves her with a concussion, and she's unable to taste or smell anything, which is not a good thing when you have to, you know, bake for a living. Charlie ends up calling Cass and being like, hey, you want to do that thing we did as a kid and switch lives? Cass ends up agreeing because she needs to get away from their hometown because she just broke up with her longtime boyfriend and he's not taking it well that it is over. So she just doesn't want to deal with it. So they end up switching lives, and it's right at Christmas time. So Cass needs to finish off Charlie's baking series, and Charlie just needs to run the family bakery. While they're switched, Charlie ends up meeting Jake, and Cass ends up meeting Miguel. Jake knows Cass, and Miguel knows Charlie. The other two don't know the other two. Miguel doesn't know Cass, and Jake doesn't know Charlie. So naturally, sparks fly, and the sisters find themselves falling in love, but the men they are with don't realize that they are not the right people. It was kind of really slow to get into, not gonna lie. I didn't really care for it. You know, honestly kind of predictable, but it was just okay. Nothing groundbreaking, just okay. And then I'm just gonna quickly talk about the last book I read. It is Shoot to Kill, which is part of One of Our Own series by T.S. Anke. I gave it 3 stars. This is one of the books I got on one of the Stuff Your Kindle days earlier in the year, and I just got around to reading it. It is an military romance. Basically, this whole SEAL team is gay AF. The story is about Gideon and a photographer named Jake. Gideon tries to get close to Jake because he thinks that Jake will have the answers to what happened. This is a 4-book series, and you don't get the conclusion of what happens in this book. That'll happen in the final book because it's one long story, but it's broken up into 4 stories, and each story is focused on different couples. And I gave that one 3 stars. It was just okay. Personally, I don't think I'll buy the next 3 books because they are, I think, $5 or $6 a piece, and I just don't think I will. The story did have some spelling mistakes, and like words were just left out of a sentence, and that like made it kind of annoying to read. But overall, like I said, it was just okay. So I ended up reading 12 physical books, 9 books on my Kindle, and I listened to 6 audiobooks for a total of 27 books in November. I did have a reading goal of reading 28, so I was only off by 1, which I'm still reading a book on my Kindle, which I will hopefully finish in the first couple days of December, but I kind of got backtracked with my reading because I had to focus on editing and filming and stuff. So what I'm going to do now is just hop off camera to finish up my eyes, finish up my brows, choose a quick lip, and then be back to show you the finished look. But yeah, I read a lot in November, and I don't think I'm going to read as much in December. Alright, and here is the finished makeup look. I honestly really like how this came together. I added a few extra embellishments to it, and I think it pulled it together a little bit more. Real quick, what I did to finish off the eyes is the white bit. That is the liner from the Wet n Wild and Nightmare for Christmas collection. It's the, which one is this? Zero to Hero. It's a beautiful white liner. I'm definitely going to get a lot of use out of this liner in December. I, of course, went in with my NYX and Beetlejuice liner because it is the best liner I have right now. My lashes are Teddy Lashes from Kiss, and my mascara is the Butterfly Kiss from Likely Makeup, and my lips are a combo of 2 items. I used the Colourpop Ashton Lippy Pencil, and I topped it with one of the lip oils from the Wet n Wild Nightmare for Christmas collection. This is Too Faced. I just wanted a really simple lip because I am tired of filming. Not gonna lie, these videos take so long because I just yap all the time. Yeah, this is the finished look. Kind of Christmassy, kind of not. Let me know what you think of it, and I'm gonna go ahead and zoom you out to finish up this video. So thank you so much for watching. I know this was one of my longer videos because I, like I said, talk too much, but I love doing makeup and I love talking about books. I love reading books. I love everything books. I had a lot of fun doing this makeup and talking about all the books that I've read. I am officially at 190 books read for the year. My reading goal is 200, so I just have to read 10 more books in December to reach my reading goal, which I am, fingers crossed, hoping to achieve within the first 2 weeks of December. Don't know how well that's gonna go because I have a lot of filming to do, but I'll try my best. So I don't want to drag this outro out any longer. Once again, thank you so much for watching. If you want, you can follow me on my other socials. I'm artistryxashh everywhere. And if you want even more book content, I am Ashley with 2 H's that reads on TikTok and Instagram. And if you like this video, make sure you give it a like. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. I am putting out a video every day leading up to Christmas for my 25 Days of Christmas series. I have a lot of content coming out this month, so I hope that you're just as excited as I am for everything that I am doing that covers everything. I hope you have an amazing day or night whenever you're watching this. Happy holidays, and I will see you all tomorrow for a brand new video. Bye!